to our students and families and staff and patrons of the Liberty Public Schools community. This is your Coffee with the Community December segment. My name is Dr. Andrea Dixon-Seahorn. I'm the Chief Equity Officer here in Liberty Public Schools. And I'm so happy to be with you today to host the session as we showcase the newest addition to Liberty Public Schools, and that is the Office of Equity. I have been here in Liberty Public Schools now for 4 years, previously having served as the Executive Director of Elementary Education for the past 3 years. And prior to coming to Liberty Public Schools, I served as Special Consultant for Equitable Education at the State Department of Education. So glad to be here with you today. So before we get started, I thought that it would be important to share with you the key roles and responsibilities of the Chief Equity Officer. More importantly, I wanted to share with you our overall mission, which is to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive school organizational culture. And as we do that, our roles will include serving as a strong advocate and champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion across all programming aspects associated with Liberty Public Schools, as well as collaborating with our district and school leaders, stakeholder groups within the district, as well as external partners to continuously shape and promote and implement the equity-centered strategic plan. The roles of the Office of Equity also include promoting an organizational culture in support of the district's strategic efforts to build an equitable and inclusive culture that benefits students, families, our staff, and the community. Also, guiding efforts to assess and define and cultivate diversity as a valued institutional and educational resource, as well as providing direction for and thought partnership with and collaboration with our district equity leaders to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the entire school system using a cross-disciplinary approach. This means that our work within the Office of Equity crosses the aisle into the Human Resources Department, the Business and Finance Department, and our Innovation and Learning Department, as well as the Operations Department. As you can see here on this visual, in our endeavor to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive organizational culture, there are some definitions that we wanted to share with you as the community that perhaps may not have been shared previously. So the first word we wanted to wrap ourselves around is this idea of diversity and what we mean when we say diversity. And so diversity for us means valuing the cultural identities, the experiences, and differences among our students, our family, and staff. The next term we want to explore is equity. What do we mean when we say equity? We mean to provide access to educational opportunities and learning experiences that promote successful outcomes for all of our students. And lastly, the word inclusion. We mean building a learning culture where the diverse perspectives of all within our community are valued and recognized. You also see here some LPS aspirations. So these are aspiration statements that speak to what we desire to become. We desire to and aspire to welcome and honor and build upon the unique characteristics and assets of every student and family while providing all students with the resources, the opportunities, and support systems needed to be prepared for success in school and beyond so that every learner can thrive. We also aspire to enhance learning outcomes for all students while closing equity gaps and eliminating the predictability of academic achievement based on demographics. We aspire to examine and improve educational practices, policies, and processes to mitigate and eliminate disparities for those who have been marginalized. We also aspire to implement culturally responsive teaching practices that are inclusive of the contributions and perspectives of people from different cultural backgrounds. And we also aspire to recruit and retain a diverse, vibrant workforce with a wide array of skills and experiences that reflect the demographic composition of our community. The work of the Office of Equity undergirds and supports the Equity-Centered Strategic Plan, which was implemented during the 2019-2020 school year and includes the 5 domains of teaching, learning, professional growth, leadership, and community. Our work is also closely related as it supports the graduate profile in terms of expectations that we have of every graduate of LPS, within these 5 domains of academic, cultural, personal, professional, and entrepreneurial. The cultural component is perhaps the newest of them all, and that our endeavor is that every student who graduates from LPS will be able to work with and interact with on a positive level with individuals from diverse backgrounds in the workplace, in school, and in the community at large. And we know that in order to cultivate these ideals and principles within our students, we will work with our teachers to help build capacity for becoming culturally competent. I wanted to just share with you the LPS equity journey. And we've been on this journey now for at least the past 4 to 5 years, beginning with school year 2016-2017, where Dr. Tucker, our superintendent of schools, established the District Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Following, in the next year, the 2017-2018 school year, we established the DLT, that stands for District Leadership Team Equity Work Group. That work group also worked on some key components of equity, including a diversity, equity, and inclusion survey for our leadership, as well as for our staff on both the classified and certified side of the organizations. There was also a cohort group of our district leaders who attended the Pathways to Equity Conference back in June of 2018. For those of us that attended, we developed a mini action plan around this idea of reaching underserved students. And some of those core components were folded into the Equity-Centered Strategic Plan. We're so proud to have launched the LPS Grow Your Own Teachers Program during the 2018-2019 school year. Our focal point of that program is to attract aspiring teachers who happen to be culturally diverse individuals and to give them the necessary support so that they will attend a 4-year field of education program and come back to Liberty and teach. We're now in our 2nd cohort and looking forward to our 3rd cohort that will be announced in May of this year. I've already mentioned that during the 2019-2020 school year, we implemented the Equity-Centered Strategic Plan. And during that particular school year, we also had another cohort of district leaders who attended the UMKC Social Justice Conference. The keynote speaker was Robin DiAngelo, who is the author of the New York Times bestseller, White Fragility. And then also, during that school year, we had a cohort of our cabinet and board members who attended the National School Boards Association Equity Symposium, which took place earlier this year in February. In terms of where we are now during this first semester of the 2020-21 school year, as part of my entry plan with the Office of Equity, being the new Chief Equity Officer, I hosted equity talks with every district leadership team member, which includes directors and school leaders, and even had an opportunity for Board of Education members to respond to a questionnaire around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Also this year, we released a cultural competency and beyond PD. It was virtual as part of a pre-service 1-hour requirement for all of our certified teachers. We also released this year in our partnership with Safe Schools, the cultural competence and racial bias training that was a requirement for every LPS staff member, both classified and certified. We also, the Cultural Competency Work Group, and the Office of Equity developed the Cultural Competence Online Resource Bank for teachers, where they can go and readily find resources around cultural competence, cultural relevance, cultural responsiveness, and unconscious bias. We continue to add resources to that online resource to keep the materials updated and relevant for ready teacher use in the classroom setting. We've also launched this year the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Book Talk series. We have 4 sessions that are being hosted. 2 of them have already taken place, and there are 2 more scheduled for next semester. These sessions include texts such as Unconscious Bias in Schools, Tell Me Who You Are. Coming up next semester, we'll have the text White Fragility, and also So You Want to Talk About Race. These sessions are facilitated by members of our district leadership team, and we have many of our district leaders that are participating in these sessions, some of them in every single session, and we're so excited about that. We're also very pleased that this year was the first time that we utilized our resource in partnership with Panorama to disseminate diversity, equity, and inclusion related surveys for students, grades 5 through 12, as well as for our families. Those surveys were disseminated back in October of this year, and we're in the process now of interpreting and analyzing all of the data so that we can formulate focus groups in second semester. And last but not least, when we think about where we are now during this first semester of the year, equity action plan development has taken place with every school leader, with every director, within every department of LPS. And those actionable plans will take effect going into the second semester of the year. In terms of where we're going, I've already mentioned a few things indicating where we're going for second semester. I've already mentioned the equity action plans that will be implemented within every school building, within every department, and we're so excited that that is happening as we're now putting equity into action around those key areas where we've identified some equity gaps. There also will be, in second semester, a cohort of district leaders that will participate in the Equity in Schools cohort. This opportunity is immersive. It will be 8 months in its endurance and its tenure, and we will have some key members from our district, from the board level, the superintendent level, the cabinet level, directors, and even school leaders that will be participating in this. This endeavor will be hosted by the Kauffman Foundation in partnership with Beloved Community. We're also looking forward to, in partnership, the Office of Equity and the Innovation and Learning Department, we're looking forward to establishing an LPS Curriculum Audit Task Force. These individuals will be teachers from our very own ranks right here in Liberty Public Schools who will help us to more critically examine the curriculum and to see where there might be areas where we are lacking in diverse representation, diverse perspectives, so that we can mitigate that and move forward in terms of filling in those equity gaps. We're also looking forward to student and family diversity, equity, inclusion focus groups. This again will be a carryover from the Panorama surveys that were disseminated back in October and allow us to get some additional feedback. And then last but not least, in terms of where we're going, we're looking forward to, and again, this is in partnership between the Office of Equity and the Innovation and Learning Department, the research and selection process by way of an RFP endeavor in terms of identifying a formal DEI service provider for all of our staff for the 2021-22 school year. I shared with you earlier the DEI Book Talk series, and just wanted to bring your attention to these books in case you are interested in reading them with us. Again, Unconscious Bias in Schools by Tracy A. Benson and Sarah Fireman. Tell Me Who You Are by Winona Guo and Priya Vucci. White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijima Oluhu. So that does conclude our Coffee with the Community talk, giving you highlights and updates from the Office of Equity. Again, I am Dr. Andrea Dixon-Seahorn, Chief Equity Officer, and I'm looking forward to giving you additional updates as this work progresses. Thank you so much for your time today. I do hope that you will have a wonderful holiday season and take time to rest and be well with family, friends, and loved ones. Thank you again.